Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today for today's webinar around navigating EdTech for a better student experience. You'll hear perspectives from IT leaders at 3 institutions in what I think will be a really interesting dialogue and discussion. Now, before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping reminders. The webinar is being recorded, and we will share the recording with you afterwards. And the Q&A box is open today, so if you do have questions for our panelists, feel free to submit those in the Q&A box, and we will do our best to get to a few of your questions at the end of today's webinar. With that, I am thrilled to turn it over to our moderator today, Jean Tayon, who is our Chief Product Officer here at Ready Education. Jean, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Mirko. Well, hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. As Mirko mentioned, I'm Jean Tayon, Chief Product Officer at Ready Education, and I'm thrilled to be here today with 3 IT leaders that we here at Ready are privileged to be partnering with to not only enhance the student experience, but support student engagement as well. And for those of you that are just getting familiar with Ready Education, if you go to the next slide, just a few quick points about us. We support 70% of the top 30 US universities across our portfolio of products, and more than 700 institutions in over 25 countries depend on our solutions to support student engagement and to transform their digital student experience. Additionally, we strive to be the platform that students use every day to be successful. We bring together academic and campus life in a way that makes it easier for students to access everything they need to be successful in their academic careers, while at the same time building out co-curricular experiences that elevate their experience and build community. This is all supported by our student engagement platform that enables our clients to engage with students, to surface to them all the opportunities available to them to get involved and engage, so that every student finds a community they need to be successful. And so today, as I mentioned, I'm thrilled to be here with 3 of our panelists. We are going to have a conversation about their digital transformation initiatives, what they're doing to drive support for student success, how they're working with less in today's world, and their perspective on future trends and innovation. And so with this, I'd love for each of the panelists to introduce themselves. Nancy, let's start with you.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. My name is Nancy Doherty. I am the Deputy Chief Information Officer at Babson College up here in Massachusetts. I have been with the institution in various roles for approximately 15 years now, and I look forward to our conversation today.
Thanks, Nancy. And Michael?
Hi, I'm Mike Matthews, or Roberts University. I've been here for 11 years, Vice President for Global Learning and Innovation, also known as former CIO. We're disrupting the name CIO because technology is able to be leveraged in ways we never thought possible.
Great, thanks, Mike. And Mark?
Thanks, Jean. Mark Bellinger, Vice President for Information Technology, Chief Information Officer at St. Norbert College. We're a small residential liberal arts college in Wisconsin, in De Pere, just outside of Green Bay. I've been at the college for 5 years, but I've served multiple institutions over the last 30 years.
Great. Well, welcome to you all. We really appreciate you joining us today and sharing your experiences with us. We wanted to start first on digital transformation and the initiatives you're focusing on to support student success. Mark, maybe you could kick it off and share with us some of your digital transformation initiatives.
Sure, Jean. Over the last, I'd say probably the last 3.5, 4 years since I arrived, we've been focusing a lot around system modernization, trying to take a look at the platforms that we have. When I arrived, we had a lot of legacy systems. And so we've just come off a 2.5-year project, moving our HCM and finance platforms over from Banner to Workday. We're currently in the process of evaluating our SIS platforms and looking at a modernization process for that to complete that transition. We're deep in a complete redesign of our external website. Again, maybe a little behind on that process, as folks typically do that every 3 to 5 years. We were just a little bit further behind on that. but also taking the opportunity to look at the platforms we run on, looking at new CMS, new cloud hosted, and trying to get ourselves again into a more modern stack. And then, and kind of finally, we're in the middle right now of a phase 2 rollout of our campus portal, which is using campus groups as a means to move our internal content that lives on our external website to an internal campus portal intranet. And so working on building department sites, campus directory, and the like. So a lot of work involved in just trying to bring the platforms that we have to a more modern state.
Great, thanks, Mark. Mike, can you talk a little bit about your initiatives?
Sure. So probably 5 years ago, we sort of completed digital transformation, measured it to make sure that 99% of everything was accessible from a smartphone, right? And so that helped us. And so when we think digital transformation in today's world is opening our ears to hear what the students really want, that's difficult, right? Putting in another product, another web portal, another app is like old school. But what's not is how do you listen to students and find out where they really want their education to go, their outcomes to go, but also what apps. And so in a perfect world, our perfect statement for digital transformation would be everything runs on Ready Education. Simple, clean, they love it. And that's what people want, simplification. How do we simplify things? Because they don't come to Oral Roberts University for the technology. They come for the engagement of students to faculty and to other people. And that's why ORU ranks 4th to 5th every year in the university rankings for student engagement.
Great, thanks, Mike. And how about you, Nancy? Tell us a little about your initiatives.
Sure. So I would say Babson's somewhere in the middle of what Mike shared and what Mark shared with respect to our digital transformation, and really modernization of technology is really how we're bucketing it and having conversations around. Similar to Mark, we did a transition over to an enterprise Workday initiative that we kicked off with HCM, finance, and student a couple of years ago, and continuing to do enhancements with relation to that. But we really are looking at the opportunities for us to streamline the number of applications that we have in our ecosystem to support our student experience, which is number one for many of us on this call, the student experience. And then in addition to that, also looking at ways that we can leverage existing enterprise tools like campus groups for our lifelong learners as well. So while we do focus on our undergraduate and graduate population, we are taking more time and energy in focusing on that lifelong learner and having them engage with us throughout their entire journey. We also have an initiative that we have not kicked off yet with respect to our portal strategy, which is a big one for us as an institution. Like many, we have multiple portals. And so really looking to get to that optimal state like Mike is at, with one experience for folks to get to, and really being able to leverage what we have deemed enterprise and our toolkit to be small. Right now in our ecosystem, I don't even want to share the number of applications that we have out there, whether they're live or have been used in a brief period of time in sunset. We really are trying to do diligence around how we can leverage the tools that we really have stamped enterprise, and how we can complement them with our other enterprise systems, so that we are really rounding out the student experience and the engagement experience with the institution.
Thanks, Nancy. Sounds like you all are very focused on that modern stack, really transforming your technology, but with a focus on streamlining the experience for students. I'm curious about data and data analytics and how that's being used to inform your decision making. Where does that sit with you, Nancy, and your priorities, and how are you approaching it?
Yeah, so for us as an institution, we take data analytics and AI extremely serious, to the point where we actually identified FTE needs at our institution and have developed a director of analytics and AI. And that person has two people that report into them, because we feel very strongly about being a leader within that space with the work that we are doing. At our institution, we have a number of initiatives underway. We have a student generator program that's out there. We have AI grants that are in place. And we are also looking at various ways that we can leverage AI within our enterprise systems to help support not only our day-to-day operations, but learning within the classroom as well. And so we really have put a heavy focus on, in particular, the data components to this. We've spun up enrollment dashboards to help support our decision making and looking at trends so that we can make sure that we're offering the best possible programming out to our future students. And we're also looking at opportunities to support our existing students. So we just did a recent pilot with a math bot to help support struggling students and engage them in ways that maybe they weren't aware that they could engage in the past. And so that pilot went really well. We have actually extended that pilot for the upcoming semester to a larger population of courses. And our hope and our goal is to actually infuse that into our curriculum moving forward. But we're really trying to leverage some of those pieces to make informed decisions. And one of the areas right now that we have really been focused on is that enrollment component and the executive dashboards for us to look at the enrollment trends and some of the data points that can help influence the type of student that we bring in, the type of student that might need additional assistance, and how we can support them to be successful at the institution.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. Mark, I'm curious, where data analytics sits with your priorities and where you're focused around data.
Well, similar to what Nancy mentioned, I don't know that I want to list the number of applications that we manage. One of our major initiatives is trying to consolidate the number of applications that we have. And so it's very similarly focusing on how we can be a little bit more efficient. And quite frankly, we're a little behind on the data side of the process since I've been here. It's been one of the initiatives that's been on our list. But we are currently in the process of evaluating and developing a plan to develop a more structured culture of data for the campus. And then primarily focused in the center of that is a strong governance structure, but a data warehouse and an ability to take all of these systems. And I'm sure the folks that are listening can attend to this. We have so many systems on our campus and the data is siloed within each of these applications. And it's very difficult to pull that information out. We spend a lot of time pulling from multiple systems and then having to blend that information together manually, as opposed to in a data warehouse being able to pull that data and allowing our folks to quickly access information and make better informed decisions based on the real-time information. And so that's a main focus for us here in the next year.
Thanks, Mark. Now, obviously, access to data and good data is sort of foundational for AI and machine learning. And I know, Mike, you've been have some interesting initiatives going on campus at ORU. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of your AI initiatives?
Sure. So, when you work at a university, you need two things all the time, because you got board of trustees who are wondering, because they're managing banks or companies, and they're saying, what have you done operationally with AI? But then also others want to know, what cool things have you done with AI? And you got to keep both of those going. So that's why operations, innovation sort of go hand in hand. And so we've been able to automate with AI the transcript process, transcript acceptance, reading, validation, articulation, if it's a transfer student, from the average of 11 days down to 27 seconds. And so we're processing transcripts automatically. And so AI is such a phenomenal tool if you can get a process across your organization and truly operational. And that was huge for us, because for anybody listening, your first AI operational project better succeed or you won't get another one for a couple of years. That's just the reality, right? And at the same time, we're able to do the cool stuff and reproduce books. I've published a book on AI now in about a week and have that as a free course. When you can publish something in a week, you don't care if it's free. You didn't spend a year going through the whole process, right? And so we've got videos that we're doing in other languages and so forth. But what we're really watching is this, is that none of these tools matter. None of these systems really matter when you think of it. What really matters is, are you in alignment with the true digital product, which is the student? Digital natives are true digital products, if you think about it. So people who live in an analog world or trying to operate the analog world aren't going to reach the digital product called the students. And so we're able to take the data now, AI, and let students know how much soy milk product they drank, how much bacon they maybe ate, but then help them correlate it. Does it even matter? how much gaming do they do every day? And we've proven, along with other national studies, that if somebody games on their phone about 2 hours a day, their grades go up. Less than that, they go down. Try and correlate that, but correlate that to everything that they're doing. And that's a whole different demographic, psychographics that we're using to help students improve themselves. So we can tell students, if you walk 10 to 12,000 steps a day, you will score 2 GPA points higher than those walking underneath 7,500 points. And it's all part of our curriculum, whole person. Your body matters, your mind matters, and your spirit matters. And so it's great to take the data from all these systems, turn it into something, not analytics, use the analytics to produce true data science. And then therefore you're helping students. So again, ultimately every student has a sponsor, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a parent, or maybe spouse, and they love the reality that there's a better tool. Because I can't go to a parent who comes on campus and say, hey, good news, ORU is going to give your son or daughter a handful of analytics. They look at you like, are you nuts? Instead, we're able to say, hey, welcome to Oral Roberts University. We're going to give your son or daughter intelligence that helps them navigate their journey, so that if they're a morning owl, they probably don't want to take an evening class because we have the data that says they'll score less. And so we're leveraging it, but personalizing is probably the right word.
Great. I love the sort of continuous student lens you all use, really around what the students need, and data and AI and becoming a pathway to supporting them. Nancy, you talked a little bit about the math chatbot earlier. I'm wondering if you could do a little bit deeper dive on that experience, and how you worked with your team to really target what students need.
Yeah, actually, we really worked with the faculty and the division chair within the math department with regards to the trends that they were seeing in a couple of particular courses, and some of the assumptions that were made based on our COVID era, and seeing some of the math challenges that some of our students were coming in. And so in partnering with our faculty, determining what the requirements were for us to think of a strong and what we thought would be a successful pilot, outlining what those requirements were, identifying faculty members who were willing to support the pilot, because it's a little bit extra work initially for everybody coming on board, and then identifying 2 courses for us to try it out in, and working on things, not only aligning the data so that we had a rubric with a grid with specific data points for where people fell, so that we could build automations for us to trigger notifications going out to our students based on where they fell on the rubric at any point in time within the course. Also offering some knowledge type articles to our students to help support initially. Some frequently asked questions. So we did load our knowledge with some frequently asked questions that came in, so that there was the opportunity for a student to potentially get an immediate answer, as to opposed to having to go to a faculty member. And then of course, always having the faculty member there to weigh in. We set up triggers and automations, so that if we found that we weren't getting any response from the student after X number of communications that went out from the system, then it alerted our faculty member to actually personally reach out. So there was a balance between the automatic communication that was coming out, that sometimes email tends to get ignored by our students, and sometimes staff as well. So I won't just hone in on students, and then also that personalization. So to get back to what Mike was talking about, that personalization, and then trying to engage with the student in a meaningful way, so that the student feels supported, and they don't just feel supported by some type of automation or computer generated system, but they also feel supported by the community as a whole, to help drive some success with them within the course. And I will say, over the course of our initial pilot, we did see great growth from kind of that first threshold of the analysis to the end of the course. And we did have a couple of students within that course that actually did very well and turned the leaf over and came over to the other side. And that was with a combination of, I think, all of what we put into the pilot and the computerized nudges that they were getting, along with the, personal outreach that they were getting, and kind of bringing them into the fold and having them understand that they do have a support model here at the institution. And, it's okay to maybe not be doing well in a course, right? And there's not a stigma associated with that, but there's an opportunity for you to be supported and for you to grow in that learning.
Great, thanks, Nancy. It's exciting to hear how you're using new technologies to really personalize the student experience and meet each student with what they need. At the same time, we're in this very transformative period with AI and technology, and you're all being asked to do more with less. Maybe, Mark, you could talk a little bit about how you're addressing funding challenges for technology at St. Norbert's.
Like most, if not all higher ed institutions, we're all struggling and dealing with the various challenges within higher education. Reduced budgets, reduced staff, increased expectations, the do more with less or do less with less, however you want to kind of approach that. At the end of the day, we've got to look for ways to be more effective and more efficient. And kind of to what Nancy said earlier, we focused around leveraging technology, where and how can we take advantage of either existing systems that we have and making the most use of them, consolidating systems, minimizing the complexities around those systems, automating tasks and finding ways to streamline an existing process and maybe eliminate the manual portion of that, and ultimately also trying to reduce costs associated with it. So if we can reduce the number of systems we had, reduce the complexity, reduce the amount of labor and time associated with supporting them, we can reduce some of those costs. What that allows us to do while we do all of this is also look back at that lens of ensuring that we're not making things more difficult, but what we're trying to do is increase the services, enhance the services that we deliver to students or to the faculty and staff, and support them in the work that they do.
Thanks, Mark. Sounds like you've got a great strategy for how to approach these challenges. Want to kind of shift gears for a minute. You've all been talking about the student experience and the importance of that. Maybe, Mike, you could talk a little bit more about how technology is being used to enhance the student experience beyond some of the things you've shared with us already.
Sure. It's, we think of collaboration and partners like a business would, right? So we're partnered in a deep way with every one of our vendors, such as TouchNet, or even the bookstore or the cafeteria services, because ultimately those companies, let's just pick on Sodexo, large company, far bigger than most companies, that they have access to the data that we don't. So they can now track every footprint of the students on campus, where they're at, who's coming, and so forth. We don't necessarily want that. We want to denormalize that data because we don't want to identify students, but we do need to know where they're spending their time, right? Because that's the experience, right? If a student is spending 5 hours in the library, we want to know that. But if they're only spending 5 minutes in the library, we want to know that. And so we're amazed at bringing forth that information. We just opened up a Panera Bread store on campus. Huge hit. But what does it mean? Who's buying it? So we can trace that daily just by watching this stuff. And I would just say to everyone who wonders about that, this is what Amazon, Walmart have done for years. It's just getting to higher education now that we can actually help the engagement process, the experience that the student had. So we're fortunate. We have a Wi-Fi network by Extreme Network, who does most major league football or baseball stadiums and NFL stadiums, and they're after the fan experience. But the truth is, that's really what's happening on a campus. How do I measure the student experience just like a football team would the fan experience? Because it's important. How do they spend their money? Where do they go? Why do they go there? And how do we interact with that? And so when we bought the Ready app over 10 years ago, we turned it over to the students. We said, hey, students, you manage this. So the Student Association owns it. And I'm telling you, it's a hit on campus because it's simple. It's allows them to engage with one another on every level. And so we want to give, if we could, give all technology to the students, because you can't outsmart the students today. So wake up, every CIO out there. You will never outsmart these students. You may have more experience. You may have more enterprise knowledge, but these kids are sharp and they can help you better than you can imagine. Spend time with them, listen to them. get engaged. Let them be convinced when the president talks to them, and they do, that they're bragging about the technology on your campus.
Great, thanks, Mike. And maybe Mark, you could comment a little bit on how technology is being used to enhance the student experience at St. Norbert's.
A really good example of how we've enhanced the student experiences through the selection of campus groups. Back 3 years ago, when we were looking for a student organization management platform, our folks in student affairs were looking at a couple of different platforms. At the same time, ITS was looking for a campus portal, and our marketing department was looking for a faculty staff sort of engagement platform. So we had 3 different projects running, all trying to work at how we can enhance the student experience, including our employee experience, but then trying to increase engagement. So we brought these 3 groups together and said, I think we can come to a point where we can select a single platform that would hopefully allow us to deliver and to provide the services at each of these areas we're looking for. And we selected campus groups. So we obviously manage our student organizations. We produce newsletters that are sent out to the campus 3 times a week, updating them on campus events, campus news. And then what we do is we take advantage of the attendance platform and being able to track attendance within campus groups. And we have a campus directory that allows us to share information and allow for students or faculty and staff to find the appropriate people they need to communicate with. And what this has allowed us to do is to overall increase the awareness, better communicate with our campus, increase engagement, and be able to increase not only attendance, but knowledge of what's happening across campus. And we can see that in the information that we get back through campus groups, whether it's the platform sharing with us how many people are opening or clicking through on the newsletters, or whether it's the attendance information, which we couldn't and didn't have access to prior to implementing campus groups. We might have had some chicken scratch with a few names or tick counts, but now what we do is we have folks who attend, track their attendance, and then what we do, very similar to what Mike describes, is we take that information and we look and we see how well the engagement is. And so if we see students that are attending 3 events or 10 events, what we do is we share that same information back with our folks in OIE who are cross-referencing against retention and looking to see, do we see better retention for students that participate in an organization or 2 organizations, or that attend 3 events or 6 events? And we can correlate that, and help gives us a sense to be able to predict where we'll see student success, and actually then begin to be a little bit more prescriptive in how we engage our students, in hoping to get them to participate or to share with them information to help them to be more successful on campus.
Thanks, Mark. So you talked a lot about how our platform is supporting student engagement, and Mike also talked about how our platform kind of brings together everything in one place for students. And so what I'm going to do right now is hand it over to Dr. M.K. Tyler. She's a solutions consultant here at Ready Education, and she's going to walk you through how our solution enhances the student experience. Thanks.
Thank you, Jean, and I've had a lot of fun learning from all of our guests today. So like Jean said, my name is Dr. M.K. Tyler, and I am on the Solutions Consulting team here, and I'm going to walk you through our site very quickly today. And I just want to reiterate as we get started, the mission of Ready Education is to be the portal that students use every single day to be successful. And the way that we can do that is that we have over 30 different native tools within our site that can be used and put together to make a solution that makes sense for your students and for your institution. So today we're going to start and look at some of the most frequently used, most popular items within our solution stack. So here, this is our homepage. This is our live demo instance. And there's a few things I want to call out. The first is that we can integrate with your SSO and your SIS. And that is really important because the login experience is going to feel familiar for your students. That means the way that they're logging into their email or their learning management system is going to be the same way they log into this. That also means you're verifying your users. And then by integrating with your SIS, we can start to do something really cool. And I'm going to play some magic real quick and jump into our admin side real quick. But we can start to develop these user tags. So not only do they have a user type, but they also have user tags. And each user can have as many tags as they need, but this allows you to start to build that information in a site that's powerful for your students. So for example, you could have their college, maybe where they're living on campus, or if they are a hybrid student, a first year student, or first gen. And where you can see those tags come to play first is within this homepage. This homepage is completely configurable for your institution to be able to plan, to be able to show what you need to show. And within this homepage, you can utilize these user tags to show different information to different students. So you could have an alert on here for your veteran students to say, hey, some information about the GI Bill has changed. Or you could have some information for your first year students about new student orientation or an involvement fair that's coming up. Additionally, the way that this is configurable, the left-hand side is also configurable to meet your institution's needs, both with those icons and the titles that you have for the different resources. So if you have a student life office instead of a student activities office, you could change those titles so students aren't confused when they log in. And before we go much further, I also want to say that, like our panelists have said, mobile is really important to our students. And we recognize that because they're always on the go. They're looking for ways to get connected and ways to find that information. So I'm going to go ahead and share my phone screen real quick because I'm really proud of the mobile application that we have here at Ready Education. And so I'm going to quickly open up our Campus Groups app. And on here, you can see that students have all the resources they need at their fingertips. They can see their schedule, their courses, events that are suggested for them, as well as their groups. Along the bottom here, you can see that they can connect via our campus feed, as well as chat with their classmates, discover different groups, and then also have all of those resources that we're seeing on the left-hand side on the web, also on mobile. Another thing I want to call out is our ID card. Every student has a digital student ID, and this is what is used or can be used to track attendance at those events and check people in. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing the screen and jump back into the web because I think that's kind of an easier way to look at everything. But everything you're seeing today on the web, we can also see on the mobile. The next feature I want to call out here is the scheduling feature. This scheduling feature allows students to go in, view their schedule, and you'll notice that it's not just academic or not just co-curricular things, but a lot of this is academic. So these blue squares are going to be classes, the red lines are due dates, and then even meetings that they might have with their advisor or upcoming activities that they registered for will all show up in one space. Because what we know is that students are saying, a lot of our students miss at least one deadline. 3 in 4 students say they miss at least one deadline a semester. But I have to imagine, I worked on campus for 10 years. A lot of that is because they just forget and they want to go do the fun thing or their classes overlap with an event. But by putting all of this in one space, students are able to start to see their holistic student experience, and you are able to deliver a really good and enriched experience for them on your campus. Additionally, I'm going to click in to our courses here. And it's not just we're showing them their classes, we are deeply integrated with your learning management system. So your students can click in this and also see their course details. From here, they can explore their roster, see different course announcements, as well as any grades they may have within the system, upcoming assignments, as well as quizzes. And within this, they can review what they need to do for those quizzes and assignments. And when they're ready, they can click that button, and using a deep link, it will take them to your learning management system already logged in to be able to really start and to complete that assignment. And so I'm really happy about that academic integration, but I also want to show that what we're seeing right now is for students, but our panelists have also talked about unifying that experience for faculty and staff or different people within your campus ecosystem. And we can do that with our community hubs. So not only will your students have a landing page, but you can also say, hey, we need a landing page for our faculty and staff or our alumni to be able to come in and use one site to have information that makes sense and is pertinent to them. The next thing I want to call out is our directory feature. So over here on the left-hand side, the same way that students could see their classmates, they can also see who is on campus with them. They can find someone with a similar interest or in a similar interest or maybe sports that they like, even a home city, a home state, or a home country if they're feeling a little homesick. From there, they can request to connect with those individuals, and only after that connection is accepted can they then use our two-way chat feature to chat with their classmates. So they're not having to share their phone numbers online or go and try to find a different off-campus, not run by you communication method like Discord or GroupMe or something that they're trying to get connected with. Additionally, from there, we also have, that's that one-on-one connection. So students need to be connected with their peers, but also they need to be connected to that community that you're building on campus. And with that, we have different community feeds. And these community feeds allow you as a site administrator to set up conversations around different themes, maybe a lost and found, looking for roommates, asking the president even, or you can utilize those user tags we talked about at the beginning to have the class of 2028 be able to only talk to members within their class or students with that user tag. Below here, you'll also see some groups. Groups can have their own channels as well. So once someone has joined a group like student government or maybe a fraternity or sorority, they'll be able to chat with the members within that group and start to build community that way as well. And the social aspect and being connected to their classes, those are really important. But we've talked about today how to guide your students through an experience that makes sense, really scaling that learning. And that can be done with our tracks and checklists feature. And this tracks and checklist feature allow you as a campus administrator or as a department administrator to build out what that success could look like for your students. These checklists allow students to go in and either self-complete items, find events that they need to attend, book meetings with an advisor, fill out forms right within the site, or even take quizzes or watch videos. They can also see their progress and know what they need to do to be successful. The last piece of connection I want to talk about is our advising piece. So students they know what their classes are doing, but maybe they need a little bit of help. They're able to click on this Meet an Advisor button, and they can see what type of advisor they can meet with. Maybe they need a career coach or even a counseling appointment or just a meeting with the psych department to talk a little one-on-one with their course information. All of this can be done within the site, and once a student clicks on this, they'll be able to see any advisor that's available during the time that they need and book right within the site, and then have that placed both on their schedule as well as receive an email with a confirmation so they could place that on their Google Calendar or their Apple Calendar as well. The next thing I want to talk about is our groups feature. So our groups feature, groups in here could be your student organizations, departments, or even colleges. And groups have several tools that really exist within the site that can start to eliminate your tech stack. And so clicking into this, some of the big tools here, every square on here is a different tool. A lot of the common ones that we've heard about today are the emails, where you can start to build emails and send them to your students, as well as different surveys and forms that you can do right within the site. You can manage your membership, as well as even connect and manage different budgets, or even build an external website for your student groups. I want to talk about this email feature real quick. So these email features allow you to choose from different templates within the site and then from these templates, build out an email that makes sense for your students. It's also very beautiful, and it all is done within this site. And once you send that out, you're able to get information about how many people received it, who opened it, if anyone unsubscribed, as well as those clicks. You can also drill down on the details and see what specifically was clicked on, and then know the resources that your students are looking at the most, allowing you to make those decisions about what's allowing you to make those decisions about how to best serve your students and what they're the most interested in. Because on campus, you're always being asked to do more with less. And a lot of times what you have less of is time. And our hope is to be able to put all this information together so you don't have to bounce from site to site to know what your students are interested in. It's all in one place. The next thing I want to talk about is our events feature. Within these events features, students are able to go through and decide what event might be interesting to them. And once they've found that event, they can click on that event and learn a little bit more. From here, they can see the date, time, some information, add it to their calendar, or even view a map, and then register for that event. And as a site admin or as an event admin, you'll be able to manage these events by clicking on this button. On here, you can see who's registered as well as those registration options. And I want to call out this registration option because I really think it is a differentiator for us in this space. These registration options can be very flexible. So you can have no registration. I just want to let you know kind of what's going on. Or it can be, I need to ask you some questions, maybe some pre-questions, assessments, or you can even integrate with your current university payment system to sell tickets right within the site. And you can have multiple options for each event, allowing you to be able to sell tickets maybe to guests, but have student tickets be free. And all of that access can be displayed based off of those, again, those user tags and those user types. Additionally, we've talked a little bit about checking in attendees at events. There's several ways that you can check students in. The first is with card swipes and a computer, so you could sit at the front door. The next is with a self-refreshing QR code that you could put on a screen. So every 30 seconds, that QR code will refresh and you'll be able to know who is in that event is actually there, because you can't take a picture of it and send it to your friends. You can also use a self-check-in kiosk, maybe if you have a center or an office or a come and go event where students are able to check themselves in right within the site. And then again, calling back to the mobile app where you can use that student ID card that we looked at, that digital ID, to be able to scan them in with the same mobile application that the students have. They can also start to take attendance within that as well. From there, you can also download reports about your events and start to understand who's at your events, what students are being engaged, and sometimes more importantly, what students aren't there, and start to make plans about how you can engage them on campus. And this is all of this being in one place. We've talked a lot about data and how it's important for institutions, but I also want to talk about how that's important for students, and that's with our co-curricular transcript. On here, students are able to see the groups they're in, any badges they may have earned, going back to those checklists that we looked at earlier, that progress. And then you can connect those checklists to badges. So if students have engaged with something, a leadership development or their NACE career competencies to build up to that, you can award them with badges that can then be placed on their LinkedIn to show competency development. You can also track their service hours and have that displayed on their co-curricular transcript right within the site. And then any student is able to request more information and experiences added on there that can be approved by the administrator. And I know I want to give a little bit more time to get back to our wonderful panelists. So the last thing I'll talk about is why this is important for you as an administrator. And so I'm going to jump into our admin page real quick. And it's, again, all of that data is in one place. And so you're able to download events or download these reports either that are pre-made, and I think that's really great, but you can also use our report builder that allows you to start to combine that information together with the columns and then edit the filters. And once you have a report that makes sense to you, you can save that view within your report library and pull it at a cadence that is needed on your campus. So when I was working on campus, every week I had to send a report about how many organizations there were on campus, the number of people that were in those organizations, how many officers they had, and the number of upcoming events. All of those were on different spreadsheets, but with this, I could start to combine that and save some time and ultimately be with my students more. I know we've barely scratched the surface, but that's in a nutshell our solution that we wanted to show you today. I'm happy to answer some questions in the chat if you want to send them through Q&A, or we would love to talk to you more, but I'm going to turn it back over to Jean and our wonderful panelists to wrap up the last 15 minutes.
Thanks so much, MK, for that great demo. In the few minutes we have left, I wanted to shift gears a little bit and talk about innovation and future trends. Maybe Nancy, you could kick it off and talk a little bit about how Babson is fostering innovation with the use of technology.
Yeah, absolutely. So we really are taking a community first approach and really trying to embrace collaboration within our various stakeholders on the campus and identifying what their needs are. And they change. At this point they change weekly. They seem to change weekly. But really embracing those conversations. There's a lot that can be learned during just communication amongst the groups and looking for common themes and looking for common areas and common pain points, and then coming back with recommendations and solutions on how best we can navigate and influence short-term immediate change and then also long-term initiative change. And so one of the things that we've been really fortunate with is our undergraduate population were the first users with respect to Ready Education and campus groups. And so, Mike, similar to your experience, our students have been leading that adoption and change management around campus. So much so that it has influenced our graduate population and our graduate staff to also embrace campus groups. And so we are implementing campus groups as we speak right now for the graduate school population. And with that, now it's shown us even greater value for a larger institutional initiative as we look at truly connecting our campus and streamlining our experiences. But it really comes down to our community and our people. And a lot of times they rely on us from a technical perspective, but it's really important for us to also rely on them to understand their business process and their needs within the community so that we can really come to the plate with a strong recommendation that is not for the immediate moment, but will last long term.
Thanks, Nancy. Just drilling in a little bit more, you talk a lot about how the importance of community input and collaboration. How do you plan to stay agile and continue to adapt as kind of trends change, both in higher ed technology, but also just the transformation that's happening with technology right now and AI?
Yeah, so we first and foremost, one of the biggest embracers for us is making sure that we're aligning the work that we're doing to our institutional initiatives, right? For a whole host of reasons, some of which are also financial, because obviously if we align to those institutional objectives, if we are in need of additional funding, a lot of times that helps support our cause when we're looking for additional funding. But it's really that opportunity to and on the AI front in particular, we are looking at platforms. We are looking at enterprise systems that have that AI functionality out in the forefront. Ready Education obviously does do that. And so with that, we're really trying to leverage that as we're making decisions and moving forward. And there's somewhat of a balancing act, but for us at Babson, being entrepreneurial in spirit, we always want to be the trailblazer, kind of out there cutting edge. And we do learn post implementation and we do learn post go live that there are lessons to be learned after the fact. And we try to circle back, debrief on those, understand areas that maybe we might have missed the mark a little bit. But that's that continuous learning, right? And so in an agile environment, which we do practice, that is conducive to us coming back and implementing changes fairly quickly, or removing things that we thought would work really well and just haven't met the mark with respect to adoption. And the change management piece is so important that you need to pay attention to that component as well, because that's going to help ultimately drive your success.
Thanks, Nancy. Loved what you said about obviously change management being essential and sort of that continuous improvement process that you've implemented, and always evaluating kind of the impact that you're having. Mike, maybe you could pick it up from there and talk about some of the key performance indicators at ORU and that you measure in sort of in that spirit of continuous improvement to really understand the success of your IT initiatives.
Sure. I mean, so no secret to anybody that the number one key performance indicator is your enrollment going up? And we can do all the innovation we want, all the technology we want, but if we don't have growth, we're spinning our wheels. And so that's our true measurement, right? KPI, we have 121 KPIs every year that we're monitoring, measuring all the time. But the good news is we got 15 years of continual growth. So we're doing something right, offering the right things. And it's not about price per se. It's really about, do people feel like their son or daughter or themselves can come onto campus of ORU and have a better job when they finish? That's a different kind of measurement. And we have a measurement of 98.7% placement. That helps everyone, right? And so here's the challenge, I think, going forward. We talk about future and innovation. We have 59 computer systems of some type, applications, Ellucian, the student information system, learning management system, and so forth. So we're going to manage 59 of those. But in 1 year, I already have 46 AI agents. Oh my goodness. And so how will I be able to orchestrate all these AI companions that every company, and Ready Education probably no different, will have 5 cool AI agents that are going to change the world. And then Ellucian will have 100 of them, and say, okay, wait, time out, everybody. Can we really afford to have Copilot, ChatGPT, this product at $30 per student per year? You get it, you put it together real fast and say it's going to be impossible. And so really, I think the future of innovation is no longer the science of technology. So science would be, we can buy a product anywhere. We can buy a competitor's product. So the science of technology is not what matters anymore. It's the art of applying it. How do we artistically understand that we live in a village of dorm rooms, restaurants, a lot of, I'll call it, consensus building faculty, and you've got to make decisions faster than ever before. And so I think the innovative things we're going to talk about in the future is no longer technology because it's spinning up every day. It's the art of managing in a technology-driven world that you have very little control of. And so I see almost like a different job title for CIOs. Remember, the first CIO title was 1980 by Boston Bank. And we haven't disrupted ourselves. So all these big mouths saying, let's disrupt everybody. Nobody wants to be disrupted anyway. It really is, how do we properly transform education so it should be what it always was intended to be? That's not disruption. And so I've labeled something called an AI maestro. And a maestro, the definition would be, who has enough experience to coordinate all these moving parts that are happening on a campus today? And so we're going to all have to step up and step back and say, wow, how do we influence a company like Ready Education so they don't go the wrong way, or an Ellucian so that they go the right way, or at least know that we're at the table discussing those kind of things? Because you can't have 600 AI agents on your campus without creating a mess. And so the great CIOs of the future will be called something different, but they'll be able to figure out and finesse how to manage all this stuff in a way that benefits students, and you can trace your enrollment growth, because nobody cares if your enrollment's not growing, right? Got to get the enrollment growing. So enough said.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I think you mentioned kind of the complexity of managing the ecosystem that you all face, and ultimately with the goal of ROI, right, on your investments. But most importantly, what does it mean for students in the end, and how you look at enrollment and job placement? I'm curious, Mark, if there are some additional KPIs or metrics you look at to measure the success of your IT initiatives at St. Norbert.
I think to Mike's point, definitely enrollment is one of our big pieces. If we're not enrolling our students, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you are spinning your wheels. And I have to comment on Mike's statement. Managing IT and all of these systems is absolutely an art. And so the challenge is definitely there. And I agree with Nancy too, to comment on hers. A lot of this is around partnerships and relationships. And it's both from partnerships on campus with our students, our faculty, our staff, but also our vendors. And so that's how we become successful in managing the applications and the innovation moving forward. Now, from a measuring of success, back to that comment, it really boils down to, we've got to make sure we've got students coming to the campus, enrolling, retaining. And that kind of gets back to, it's not just the students that we get to come in that first year, but also who stays. And so when we're looking at the different ways to measure the technology that we're working with, I kind of go back to that example I made when we were talking about how we've tried to measure and use campus groups information to help measure engagement. And one we want to do is we want to make sure that we're getting students engaged on campus. We know that engagement encourages and establishes persistence and hopefully getting us to the point of retention and graduation. So, what we'll typically do, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, is we share a lot of the information that we get through campus groups, much like Mike was referencing. All the various systems have different levels of information, and it's the art of how do you bring those together in order to be able to report back. So one really good example is that attendance piece for us is that it gives us a very clear idea of the engagement associated with these students. If they're logging into the systems, if they're attending events, if they're participating in organizations, our folks in Office of Institutional Research have showed us that and have been able to share the relationship to engagement and involvement to persistence and retention. And so those are things that we'll continue to look at in all of our systems. And if we can find other ways to engage our students and to track the success of that engagement, that's where we're going to be able to be better at predicting and being more prescriptive in how we help encourage the students in their success moving forward.
Great, thanks, Mark. I love how we went from metrics and KPIs to art, the art of being a CIO. That was great. We are almost out of time, so we're really not going to be able to answer too many questions. We'll answer what we don't answer offline. But did want to ask kind of one final question of each of you. What's one piece of advice you would have for those watching today as they look at ways to enhance the student experience? And I don't know, maybe Mike, you could kick us off.
Sure. I mean, back to just reiterating, listen to the students, right? Students don't care about product names. They don't care what you think they care about. And I'm not saying that we're not in tune, but it changes really quite frequently. And so you've got to keep balancing that alignment so that you can convince everybody who's in decision-making power around the decision table is, wait a minute, are we really spending things on the right thing? So in a perfect world, I would, if I could wave a magic wand, I would say, hey, Ready Education, come on, help me out here. Help me save the money on the student information system and make it all available on your app. That would solve so many problems around the world. And yet, can that happen overnight? Probably not, but it is like turning the Titanic in a little pond, one increment at a time. You keep working it, you keep working it. And finally, hopefully we've got something much better than what we've had to struggle with through the years. So hopefully that's helpful to some.
Thanks, Mike. Listen to the student, right? And I think that's driving a lot of what you're saying is what you're hearing from students. How about you, Mark? One piece of advice you'd have for those watching about enhancing the student experience?
I got to echo what Mike is saying here, because really it is boiling down to the students. And the thing that's interesting is we get older every year, but our students, their ages stay the same. They turn a little bit. We get new students, but that demographic, that age generally, whether it's an undergrad student or a graduate student, generally stays the same. Tastes and variances and needs and those types of things change drastically over time. And so while we may sit here and think that we know what a 17 or 18-year-old or a 22-year-old needs, I find we are much better at hitting that target when we're talking to them.
Great, thanks, Mark. I know here at Ready Education, we spend a lot of time talking to students, and I totally agree. We need to listen to students. Anything else to add to that, Nancy, before we close up here?
Yeah, I mean, Mark and Mike said it beautifully with regards to the engagement of the students. I think the other piece for us to consider when you're taking on an initiative like this is to be open to pivot, to be open to change. And you might start out the gate with a specific milestone or vision, but it's okay to actually pivot and shift based on what you're hearing for feedback and maybe how things are going. That is certainly something that you need to be open-minded to and say, okay, well, we need to make this change and we're going to transition this way. And as you're learning with working with your students, I also think, Mark, to your point, having a strong relationship with your vendor is critical. And so I have really had the fortune of working with the Ready Education team to share what's going on Babson's campus, some of our pain points, hearing some of the things that we're trying to work around. And so I would suggest to folks on the call, don't be shy, have those conversations. A lot of the conversations that in the pain points that I have shared, others are also experiencing as well. And so for you guys as a vendor, you can say, all right, we're seeing this trend. We've had this conversation now with multiple people, and how could we potentially impact our product development so that we can support some of those needs?
I love that. Well, we're at the close here, but thanks for mentioning that, Nancy. And obviously, we really value our relationships with clients like the three of you, and learning from you so we can bring to our product solutions to the problems that you're seeing. This was a great session, and really appreciate your time and expertise. Thank you.